Okay, I'm hoping it's recording. Um, well, today we are here to talk about Minor Arcana. And in the past two classes that I've been doing these online webinars for about 3 months now, and in the past we talked a little bit about the general idea of what a tarot deck is. Again, it's like an oracle deck, knowing that tarot decks do have major arcana and minor arcana. And the major arcana portrays the hero's journey. So we talked about that last class, and we went from the fool till the world, going through all the experiences that the fool go through to get to the world and to that completion and that feeling. And today we're here to talk about minor arcana. Minor arcana is usually connected, as the name says, minor details or maybe everyday mundane things. When we talk about major arcana, we talk about karma and life experiences. Minor arcana is more or less everyday situations. And when we look at the minor arcana, as we can see, the first one with the ones, and we go from the 1 till the 10, we have 4 different suits in the minor arcana. We have the wands, and the wands symbolize the fire element and the new beginning, the motivation, the spark. Then we have the swords, and the swords represent the element of air, the intellect, everything that happens in our mind, okay? Everything that is really like very logical also. Then we have the cups under, and that is all about emotions. It represents the element of water, and we can see the element really very vivid in this card. So it's easy to recognize that cups are related to water. But again, it's all about emotions, all the things about the heart. And then we have finally the gold or the pentacles, which is the element of earth. And it's all about, you know, the material things and the values. So I always emphasize that many times when we look at pentacles, we are having a values issue. And values is not only money, but money is the number that we give to what we appreciate. So I feel like that there is something there going on with, like, you know, it's not all about money or mundane. It's more about like, what is our worth. When we look at the first card and seeing the aces portray new beginnings. When we look at new beginnings, we have to see what areas in our lives the new beginnings are happening. And as I was mentioning before, maybe they happen into having the idea when it comes with, you know, the Ace of Swords, or maybe it's like the inspiration, just you wake up and you have that fire burning inside that you need to do this new thing and you have the motivation to go about it. Or you may have new feelings or, you know, new values, and you see it that way. We also see a little bit of a difference, and this is something that we will continue seeing as we move forward. There is a similarity between the wands and the swords, and then the cups and the pentacles. And in the way of like the similarities, I say like the way that the element is held. For example, when we look at the wands and the swords, it's a very, like it's a fist-like. It's a little bit more masculine, more young energy. And then when we look at the pentacles or we look at the cups, we see more like they're holding in like an offering position, which is a more feminine or passive. And I don't associate feminine and masculine with passive and active, but it is more like the quality of like offering, softer, more yin energy there with the cups and the pentacle. So we see that similarity, because as the story progresses with these cards, you will see that they do have a correlation between wands and swords and then cups and pentacles. And I think this comes a little bit from the elements, right? When we have fire and we have air, they do combine pretty well when we look at, you know, astrology or different types of methodologies. The same happens with water and earth. They do combine. They are like friends. But when we start looking at like earth and fire, not so good. You know, air and water, not so good. So definitely there is like a correlation in there when we look at these cards. So the one is the new beginning. And a new beginning may mean that you are just starting to think differently. Like I was saying, you get the idea or you get the inspiration or you have a new feeling. Like you wake up and you feel different. You feel different than you felt before. Or you get like this new value. Like now you know what is your priority. You know what you value, so you go for it. Or you have a new opportunity. Again, Pentacles have that material thing there as well. So it could be like a new opportunity that brings you more material things. So yeah, so when we look at the new beginnings, that is the important thing, okay? And then we will move to the second one. And when we look at the twos, I really wanted to bring all the cards, and I'm using the Rider White because I feel like this deck is one of the traditional decks. It also has a picture for each of the minor arcana instead of just having the element. And I think that makes a difference because when we look at tarot, we want to see a picture. We want the picture to talk to us, and it's sort of like looking at a mirror. So we want this type of story to be told. Unless you are very proficient at tarot and maybe you use the Marseillaise or any other deck that only has the element, and they may have the two wands or the two swords or the two pentacles or the two cups, okay? But in the beginning, I highly suggest that you pick a deck that is this type of deck or a variation where it does have a picture so you can get more of the story. So when we look at these cards, again, we see the two, we see the duality, the polarity, the opposites, the balance. But when we look deep in the cards, we see in the Two of Wands, we see someone holding the world, okay? And having that energy from the wands, like the fire. So it's like, how do you hold your vision? It's time to sit down and look at your world and see like, is your world reflecting what you want, or you need to change something? Because everything is our creation, right? So if you don't like what you have created, you can change it, but you have to observe it. And I feel like that card definitely brings us a new fire of seeing like, okay, let's look at my world now and let's see if I need to put more energy in certain areas, or I have to go a different direction, or how can I be owning my reality? When we look at the Two of Swords, we see a different story here, right? We see a woman crossed and blindfolded. This card many times brings a lot of energy because it's just like, you know, blocked. But there is, again, a duality here. We can see it as the person is not wanting to see what other people have to say, or we can also see it as this person needs to shut down and just trust her inner compass, because the people around her have their own agendas, their own ideas. And so now, how does she really feel? When we look at the back of the card, we can see the water, and the water is not very like, it's not going crazy in a sense. So we feel like, you know, the water is calm. So the person in her emotions is very calm. She just needs to look at the situation through her own eyes, and that's why it's the blindfolded and the cross arms, just like stay away. So you can see it either way. You can see it as someone that does not want to see anything that's around them, or you can see it as like someone that really needs to shield up a little bit and get a hold of her own thoughts so she can control them and not be controlled by the external environment. When we look at the Two of Cups, we see, again, a different story. And I think if we start looking at the progression, we can see how the elements are panning out here. In here we see the couple, we see sort of like an angel, but it's a lion. There's the energy, there is a union, there is like really like they're coming together. And I feel like in this card we do see that love situation. We can also see the coming together of our own two sides, right? Each of us has the feminine and the masculine within us. So it's like just trying to find that completion. But you can also definitely see it. It's something that, you know, you are coming together with a significant other, or, you know, a soul flame, definitely. And when we move to the Pentacles, that's where we see the person that's trying to have fun. And I feel like Pentacles, because they are the element of earth, there is that feeling like it's very like heavy. There's very like structure. Things have to be a certain way. Similar to when we look at the different signs in the zodiac, right? We have the Taurus, we have the Virgos and the Capricorns, and those are very structured signs in a variety, but you do have a structure there. And what this card is saying, like, loosen up a little bit, okay? Be a little more flexible. You want to manifest this abundance, but in order to do that, you have to be flexible and you have to have some fun. Abundance is not going to come if you're stressed out about paying your bills every day. Like, it's going to come up if you just find a way to go with the flow and really like make that money grow in a more like easygoing way. And when we look, we do have the infinity sign. So the infinity is saying, hey, there is infinite possibilities, there's infinite money, there's infinite abundance. But are you able to see it, or are you very focused on just like your microcosm instead of looking at the whole picture? So that's what these twos are bringing us. And when we move to the threes, here's when we get to start seeing some of the difference and some of the similarities, right? We see threes coming together. We see some integration. We have the two and another one's coming. There is some synchronicity there, but we do see very different energies, okay? Even when we look at the card, I could bet you that you are there, and the card that is calling your attention is the heart with the three swords. Because it's definitely the one that is like, that is the card that nobody wants to see in the readings, for sure. So when we look at these different threes, they all portray a different story. And again, it does have to do a little bit with the element that they are working on. When we look at the ones, the person is definitely looking ahead. It's holding up to the one, but knowing that, you know, there's better things coming and I have the energy. And now that I had, if you remember the Two of Wands, the person had the world in their hand. So now they are just like, now I have the vision, now I know where I want to go, and now I'm heading over there and I'm seeing all my possibilities. When we look at the Three of Swords, it's a different story. And here we do see pain, we do see suffering. Many times when we look at books, it's like maybe deceit, maybe betrayal. There is the threes, maybe there is some cheating there as well. But also there is, could be the betrayal to our own selves, right? Remember, the Two of Swords had the lady looked like really blocking everything that was coming from outside. But if she doesn't, she may be like, you know, sabotaging and creating suffering for herself. So it could be like we have a progression here with this this pain or this heart pain, or once she sees her reality, she can feel that pain of maybe some choices she made in the past that she's not very happy about. So that is the energy of this card. Like I said, some cards have more of a negative connotation, but I don't feel they are negative. There is no negative cards or positive cards. There's just opportunities. And there may be some more challenging opportunities, like they challenge you to grow, but without those challenges, we cannot grow. Like if everything was great in our lives, we wouldn't grow at all. Like you would be like, okay, everything is going fine. Like there is not such a thing. So definitely like these cards bring those experiences, and we shouldn't fear them. It's sort of like when we look at the major arcana, when the Tower comes up, or when the Devil comes up, or when the Death card comes up. All those have so much connotation into like more of like a challenging situation that we definitely don't want to be putting a lot of energy on that, but seeing them as transformation. Yeah, chaos brings, a different situation, but it brings growth. And honestly, the only like constant is change. The world doesn't stay the way it is. Like if you look at a tree, the tree has the leaves and it loses the leaves during the winter. They grow back up during spring and summer. So there is always these cycles and these situations. So we shouldn't see those cards as real like fearing them, but more like, okay, I see that. Where is my pain coming from? Where is this pain that the Three of Swords comes from? And most of the times when I do readings, I do feel like people see this card, they know what the card is about. They may not want to see it, but they usually know where the pain is coming from. And it could be also a person that just had someone crossing over and they are in grief. So that could also be one of the situations that this card portrays. When we look at the bottom side and we look at the Three of Cups, it's a totally different situation, right? We pass from pain to happiness, from like suffering to joy, to like, I don't know, women coming together, like party, like connecting, celebrating, enjoying life. So it's really definitely one of those things when we can see like, and if we were to take it a step above, we can say like, well, the Three of Swords is like a relationship that has three people in it, but not everyone is happy there. And then maybe you have the Three of Cups and it's a polyamorous open relationship where everyone's happy with each other and they are really combining together. So definitely you can see those two different situations and different scenarios. When we move to the Three of Pentacles, here's where we see like the person is in the church or what looks like a church and people are looking at him. But it's like, it's hard work, but it's bringing something really good. Like it's bringing a good outcome. So it's worth putting the work that you are putting into this situation. It will bring some abundance, some wealth coming your way. And it can also be like associated with like coming together of partnerships. We see the two people and the third one there, but it's like, it could be like, okay, we have a business project, we have work to do, and now we definitely like are coming together and doing it, and it will take some time, but it's going to pay off in the end. So that's when we see the threes. Moving to the fours. The fours are a different story, and here's where we have to assess some of our needs. We have some completion and some stability. And before I forget, if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask the question as well. I have muted everyone because if not, I get some feedback on the audio or what I'm listening to. So, but you can definitely unmute yourself and ask a question or put it in the chat, and I will like go over the questions at the end of the presentation. So when coming back to the presentation, when we look at the fours, again, we see very different energies, right? When we see the Four of Wands, we do see celebration. We see sort of like a wedding. There's a castle in the back. There's happiness. Most of the cards portray Four of Wands being a very happy card. Maybe the completion of like those situations where we were like started with the motivation, then we look at our vision, then we really like set forth, and now we have this completion where we are finding what we want. So definitely like it's a very energetic card to come across. When we look at the Four of Swords, again, it's a different story. Here is where we have to meditate. We have to assess the way we are thinking. We have to like maybe take some time, slow down, and regroup our thoughts. Because again, remember, swords are the intellect. They are the way we think. So here's like, okay, stop, take a pause, reassess how you're thinking, and see if your thoughts are taking you in the direction you want to go or not. Similar situation if we move to the Four of Cups, is that meditation. But here, instead of having to get a hold of what we are thinking, we are getting a hold of like what we are feeling, what are our emotions. And some books have this card described as, you know, depression or boredom or not happy. But when I look at the card, I usually say to people, like, just look and see what you feel about the card, because the book was written by the person that was looking at the card, but you may have a totally different, you know, idea of what the card means for you, and that is fine. The cards are meant to be your mirrors. They are meant to talk to you. So if you don't agree 100% with what the book says, it's still okay. It's fine. You should go with what you feel and not what the book says. And that's why I always, when I look at this card, I never see boredom or depression. I do see a person needing to like assess where his or her feelings are, and maybe not seeing really the opportunity of like the cup being offered, and maybe like regretting or focusing on the past and looking at the cups and he cannot access instead of seeing the one that's being offered to him. And when we move to the final one, which is the Pentacles, here we do see a person that is jealous or possessive or needs to control. It's not letting go of those pentacles. It's like, these are mine, these are my stability, and I'm not letting them go. And so definitely means like someone that cannot trust the unknown, like needs to know plan A, plan B, plan C, and really is very, very attached to the outcomes that he or she wants. So it's definitely like very like stuck with the values they have, and they cannot see any other value than their own. So definitely that's where they are seeing that. When we move to the fives, and we are getting to the middle of the Minor Arcana, right? We said that we go from 1 to 10. The fives are usually the tests. These are where conflict comes. This is where struggle comes. All the fives like really show like a struggle in a certain level. And usually the level that the struggle comes is the level of the element they hold. So when we look at the Five of Wands, we see anger and that fire that is taking a situation where it's not contained. And it's like I said, fire can cook a meal or fire can burn the house. In here, fire is sort of like burning the house down. We see like all these different people fighting each other. And many times when I see this card in a reading, I do feel that it's either an internal fight or the person is like externalizing that fight. So either there's many people fighting with the querent or with the person that's sitting for the reading, or in his or her mind, he or she's having a lot of like thoughts like, oh, maybe I go this way, no, that way, no, that I should do that, and it's fighting, like has many monkeys there. I usually is what I call the monkey mind, this Five of Wands. When we look at the Five of Swords, it's different in the sense that this is just desolation. It's the lose-lose proposition. Nobody wins in this battle. Even when the guy is standing there with the swords, he's not feeling like a winner. He's not feeling accomplished. It's like, okay, we lost everything and I have these swords, but it's not a happy feeling. It's just that feeling of like, okay, I tried everything and I couldn't work it out. Okay, I couldn't figure it out. When we look at the Five of Cups, we definitely see, again, sadness and concern, but here is a more emotional card, so it usually talks about grief, and the person is seeing the empty cups or the cups that are, pouring on the ground instead of seeing the two cups that are standing behind him. So it's like regretting things with people that we may have lost without seeing, like, we still have people around us, we still have love around us, we still have possibility. If you were to see, instead of focusing on the loss, he could see that there is a bridge in the back that takes him to a happier place, a happier home. So he's not really seeing the opportunities because he's so much in his own grief that he just can see what he lost and cannot see anything else. And when we move to the Pentacles, we have a similar situation here, but in here it's more like, what are your needs? There are needs that are not being met. There is like a sense of like misery, devastation. Again, like when we look at it, they are not really seeing the church in the back that can give them food and, a warm place to be. They are just there in the snow, not having anything to eat. So definitely, like, it is one of those cards where like you feel like there is a sense of misery or deprivation, or like your needs are not being met. When I see this in a reading, I definitely know that the person is going through something where like maybe they are not getting paid enough in their work, or maybe in the relationship they are giving too much and the other person is not putting enough. And any kind of like situation where like there is something that's missing there. I hope, like, if you have any questions, again, like, we can talk about them at the end, but just, or you can type them in the chat room and I'll pick them up at the end. But yeah, the fives are definitely tests and chaos. But when we pass the five, we move to the six, and the six brings back a feeling of happiness, of harmony, of like really like advancing or getting to like, oh, I passed. Similar to when we were looking last class and we were looking at the Major Arcana and we were seeing those peaks and valleys that we had, like, okay, now you have like the star, but then you have, the moon, and then you have, the devil, but then you have the temperance. And so there is that energy when we look at the cards that has that up and down that goes around, right? So we pass from the fives that were like all about struggle to the six that it's more like a happy feeling, except for like the swords, that when we look at the card of the swords, it doesn't portray a lot of happiness, but still it does have the silver lining when we look at like leaving behind some pain and going to a better land and taking with us, everything that we need, all our thoughts, but really like moving in a different direction instead of having that lose-lose proposition that we had in the Five of Swords. We are looking just at the future with, hope and thinking like things are better on the other side of this lake. When we look at the wands, we see that all that fighting brought us to a place where we can see that we were successful. We cope with all those feelings, whether it was a battle that was external or it was a battle that was within us. We still master being successful in that battle, and now we have the glory, or we have the person on the horse, and really coming back as like they won over that battle. When we look at the cups, remember that we had the person standing, right? And he was grieving, or she was grieving over those cups that were still, but couldn't see the cups that were in the bag. I feel like the 6 of cups is the person turning around, seeing the cups that are still standing, and giving a second chance to this situation, right? And that's where we see the 6 of cups is like the innocence of new beginning, new love, or, you know, maybe old love, but it's like when you were a child or very young. It's just like that rebirth of those emotions. When we look at the pentacles, again, we do see a progression from the 5 of pentacles being outside the church in misery, and now we see the person giving. And some people are giving and some people are receiving. So every time I see this card in a reading, I feel like the person either has to be open to receive or has to be open to give more from the heart without expectations, but there has to be a balance. It cannot be that the person is always giving or the person is always receiving. It has to be balanced at that point. And that's where we have the scale that the person is holding. Like, let's keep the balance of giving and receiving so everyone's in harmony. After the 6, we move to the 7th. And again, like I was saying, there is those peaks and valleys. And here's where we get into, again, a little bit of a roller coaster. Like, we have some inner work to do. We need to reflect on what's happening. We need some discipline. And we need to correct certain situations. So with the ones, we do see obstacles coming up again. We do see definitely like trying to, I don't know, push them away in a sense, and trying to move away the energies that are not serving us in our, you know, path. And I would think, like, when I look at this card, I do see those times when we get distracted with other things, like we get all this energy, and at the same time, like, we are losing the focus of what's really important to us. So if we were to go back to that 2 of wands or that 3 of wands, when the person had the world, had the vision, had the way, knew where they had to go, and here they got distracted. It's like, oh, okay, well, but maybe I do that, and maybe I do this. I mean, and there is all these different things that he needs to sort of like sort away in order to be able to really regain that focus. When we look at the 7 of Swords, here is another card that talks about deceit and not very honest behavior. Some people see this card as a person is stealing the swords. It's looking back and see, it's like, is anybody seeing me? Like, I'm taking these ones away. These are mine. But definitely, like, it's like that type of like dishonest behavior. We have some dishonesty there. So this dishonesty could be with other people, or it could be self-sabotage. Okay, what areas in your life are you not looking honestly to be able to like see where you are robbing yourself of, you know, your happy ending or your calling, right? So you could be like, you know, you are deceiving yourself or others, but there is that deceit. And talking about deceit, it's not as much as deceit as it is confusion when we look at the 7 of Cups. But not all that shines is gold. And I think that is one of the messages of this card. It is definitely like one where like we don't know what is going on, but of course I'm gonna go for that thing that's covered there, and who knows what's under there. But I'm gonna go for that one because I don't know, and so I'm gonna bet that it's something good. And then when we push it up, oh my God, it's horrible. So definitely this card talks about a little bit of confusion and not seeing clearly. Like when I see it, I see a very Neptunian card as well, in the sense of like, because you don't see very clear, you gotta trust how you feel about things, because this is not the time to see or think, it's the time to feel what feels right. Because if you think, you may think wrong. If you like choose something in a way of like more intellectual, you may be deceived. You may find out that at the end of the story, it wasn't what you thought it was gonna be. So that's what I see in that one. And when we look at the Pentacles, here's where the person really like planted the seeds and is waiting for them to grow. Needs patience, needs discipline, needs like working on those so they can grow to full potential. But sometimes it's like observing them. I'm not very happy about it. Like maybe he or she would want things to go faster, but has to have the patience and the perseverance to see them through. And that's what we get from this card. So definitely like, it's one of those cards that, again, all you needed to do has been done. You planted, they're growing. Now you have to have a little bit of patience. And I get a comment. So, okay. I like that idea, Deborah, about seeing the Seven of Wands as, standing for the person's beliefs. Definitely like, I can see that for that card. I always like, from the very beginning when I saw this card, I do see like pushing or rowing, or like it's a movement of like really like pushing away anything that doesn't serve us anymore as well. And it could be like other people's beliefs, or again, like I said, many times we are pushing away things that, hey, it's what our parents thought, or it's what our, I don't know, teacher in first grade told us that we couldn't do. And so now we have to stand up and say, yeah, actually, I can do that. I don't agree with that belief, so I can push it away. So I like that. Thank you. I always love teaching because I learn from my students a way of like seeing the cards in a very different way from the way I see it. So definitely thank you. And as we move to the 8, the 8 again has that connotation of like, some of them are harder than others. There is a little bit of completion here. We haven't got to the 10 yet, which is like the full completion of the element, but we are almost there. And that almost there meaning is what we see in the 8 of Wands. The 8 of Wands is that like it's almost landing, not there yet, but almost. So whatever is going on, it's about to pass. So just stick with it, keep moving, keep going forward, and know that it's about to end, and that whatever you threw in the air, your ideas, your energy, your motivation, is about to land in a good position. Different is the 8 of Swords. I mean, here we are seeing some of the element, right? So when we look at the element of air and the intellect, and you see the parallel of reality, right? When the person is too much in the head, the thoughts can control you. They own you. They limit you. And that is the picture we are seeing. When you are just thinking too much, you get like, I don't know, sort of like in a prison of your own making. You don't see any way out, and you feel bound to all these thoughts and the ways you think, or whether it is your thoughts or it's other people, but it's like you get into those monsters, that crazy monkeys that like tell you cannot do anything, and you get paralyzed like this person in the picture. When we look at the Eight of Cups, we see the person walking away. They are walking away from some of the emotions they have. We do see the cups, but they are walking into a better like situation, a better story. I feel like many times, and I could see these cards when I moved to this country. I come from Argentina, and I moved here about 14 years ago to the US. And I had to leave behind all my family and all my friends and everyone that I loved and everything that I loved. But I came with the hope of something better. And that happened with time and with work and with all these different things. I do feel better, and I miss my family still, and I see them and I try to go back, but it was walking away from some stability with the hope that it was, something better was going to come. So I definitely see this card with that situation, that exodus to the promised land or to like something better. And when we look at the pentacles, we see the person working, definitely like very earthy card, and working diligently, paying attention, but he has almost all his work completed. If you look at it, all he has is like one more pentacle sitting, and he's working on the other. So he has done a lot of work, and it's really like meticulous in the work. So definitely like it's one, like, again, you're almost there. You haven't finished your work because there's still one pentacle sitting there, but you're almost there, similar to the wands. And as we move to the nines again, here is where we can see, similar to what I was saying in the very beginning, with the correlation with wands and swords and then cups and pentacles. We see that if we look at the top part, if we have too much fire, we get burnout. And that's the Nine of Wands, okay? Really exhausted. Really a person that's barely standing, but still standing. So we won't like take that away from him. But he's like exhausted, he's tired. Like you see the bandage. It's like he went through the ring of fire and came out, and he's barely making it, but it's still standing. So it's like, okay, you gotta like rest a little bit. You gotta like take some time for yourself, do some self-care. There's some things like you can only go for so long until you burn out. And I think that's the message of this card. When we look at the Nine of Swords, we see again the same similar story, but with the intellect, where we have like you are running out of steam with the Nine of Wands. With the Nine of Swords, too much thinking, all those ghosts, all those ideas, all those things are just taking over. And it's that moment when you wake up at 3 a.m. and your head starts thinking like, oh my God, I have to do this, oh my God, oh, I am not going to be able to do that, or I have to pay the, all these different like muttering that's happening in our mind is a Nine of Swords. Is that anxiety, that stress, that overthinking, that mind taking over of your whole life. And usually the mind is not very good at like not creating worry and anxiety. Usually the mind creates a lot of worry and anxiety because that's part of the way that it can have some control. Like it thinks like, oh, if I make 20 million to-do lists and I have a strategy, I'm going to be able to make it. But it doesn't work that way. It's usually become a bigger monster. And when we look at the Nine of Cups, we see the different story. Nine of Cups and Nine of Pentacles are very happy. And when we look at it, getting into the progression of how the element of water comes out, the element of water with the Nine of Cups is like the wish is coming true. It's a person that really has everything they need. They are happy. They are content. They have the friends, the people, the emotions, the love. They are a happy-go-lucky guy. And that's what you see there. And when we look at the pentacles, we see a powerful woman, a woman standing in her power, holding, like, knowing that she's abandoned, she is independent, she doesn't need of anybody, she has all the money she needs, and she's in control. And she's in, like I said, she's in her own power. So definitely, like, you see the difference when you look at one swords, cups, and pentacles. Okay, there is a totally two different stories, and you will see that that happens at the end too. Because when we look at the 10, we look at the total, like, getting to the peak moment of these elements. And when we get to the peak, we see, like, what happens with the 10 of Wands is, like, you are overworked, like overburdened. You cannot hold anymore. You cannot do anymore. You're just like, and many times you do way too many things in order not to see reality, right? This is another place of, like, when I see this card, he's like holding these wands and it's not looking. It's just like, oh my God, if I can hold this together, I just focus on that and I don't focus on what I really need to focus. I just distract myself with this. When we look at the 10 of Swords, and I always joke with this one because it's like, you know, it's like the acupuncture card with a 10 of Swords in the back. But because you gotta laugh at some of these cards, because sometimes when people see them, it's sort of like too scary. So you gotta bring them down a little bit. But here it's like you see a victim. You see a victim of their own thoughts, or you can see a victim of someone that is real, like, stabbing them in the back. Okay, you get to a point where, like, somebody has been doing something, has betrayed you, so you can see this card. But definitely most of the times you can see that victim mentality of, like, oh my God, everything happens to me, like, oh, the world hates me, nothing goes right, and this went wrong, and I lost my job, and someone died, and all these different things you see in that card. It's definitely like the pinnacle of, like, negative thinking, if we can think it that way. And then we have the 10 of Cups, which is all happy. And we have the 10 of Pentacles, that there is happiness too. It's a different type of happiness. And when we look at those two side by side, we can see, like, you know, money doesn't bring you happiness. It could help. But sometimes you can see the difference in, like, when we look at the 10 of Pentacles, we see more structure. Still we see happiness, but we don't see the kids playing and all that, like, really bonding of the couple. We see a little more of, like, you know, yeah, we build our empire together. We have a lot of, like, material things and a lot of values and a lot of different things. And the 10 of Cups is more like, oh my God, the happy ending of love and romance. And yeah, there may be money, but it's more of, like, when we look at the different houses and the different environment, definitely there is a difference in the abundance side. But I wouldn't say one is better than another, but I do feel like they do have that vibration of happy ending and happy completion, where, like, the 10 of Wands and the 10 of Swords has a more of, like, dramatic. But again, if we think about how fire, if you take fire to the highest exponent, it does burn the house. If you take air to a very, like, exponent, you also, like, really, like, could blow everything away. It could really, like, take over your mind. And then with Cups, because we are, like, embracing our heart, we can get that happiness. And with our values, if you do embrace what you believe, if you do embrace what you value, what are your priorities, if you know your worth, you definitely get that type of happy ending as well. So definitely we can see those correlations. So these are the minor arcana from 1 to 10. And if you want to learn more, I do recommend these two books. Definitely the first one, Tarot for Yourself, is one of my favorites. I love her approach when she's teaching. And the book is all about not as much of tarot for divination, but it's more tarot for like really like knowing and discovering who you are. And it does take different areas like doing tarot for health, for work, for love, for yourself, combining tarot with astrology, with numerology and different sciences. So definitely like it's a very complete book. Learning Tarot by Joan Bunning is also very good, but it's really like tarot focused. So it doesn't have a lot of the other areas, but it does have a very solid foundation for tarot and for learning the cards and also learning the spread. So I definitely recommend these two books. So if you have any questions, please unmute yourself or post them in the chat, please. If not, I think that's all I have for today. So it was great having you here. Questions? Great. Okay. Well, hopefully you enjoy. I might trying to get my computer to work. But yeah, and I will try. If you want me to send you the presentation, please post your email and I can send that to you. I've been trying to figure out how to post it in the meetup as well. I could post it in the Facebook invite as well. But definitely I can send the presentation to you so you can have it. It does not have a lot of information about the cards, but definitely like you can at least look at the cards and have that if you are not very familiar with this deck. So if you want, I can definitely do that. So